Hello everybody. In this video, I will introduce the concept of encapsulation as we can actually read in chapter 5 of the book for this course. I will not go deep with all the sections, but I want to show a couple of them that are more primarily or the more useful, let's say like that. And we're going to move a little bit regarding how to access different parts of the encapsulation methods through accessors mutators, through properties, and the difference that we can actually have. And also we will do some minimization on the code. Sometimes that will make it more readable, sometimes that just make it simpler, I would say like that, in order to have some kind of shortcut, let's say like that, the new C# 9 allowed us to do. So without anything else to add, let's just get started. So as you can see, I'm already in a folder called encapsulation from this specific course. And what I'm going to do is just do .NET new console, and let's call this encapsulation. And hopefully I'm typing it correctly. Oh, I already have it there, right? So let me just remove. This is just for me. Let me remove the one that I have there, and let's create it again. They will create a new project in 62 milliseconds. Perfect. Let me just go inside that and let me open my Visual Studio Code with code dot. That will open my Visual Studio Code extension here. As you can see, it will ask you for the debugging mode we need to install a bunch of stuff, or just say yes. That should be it. Pretty much it's going to build your application just to be able to run it through the debugger mode if we want to. But we can see that later. But for now, let's just get to the program. So one of the things that I like to do, I don't know you, I actually like to use spaces size 2. So whenever I save it, I have a less shorter tabs in there, pretty much. But what is actually encapsulation? Encapsulation is one of the main objects or the main how can I say, areas of object-oriented programming that we need to understand. And this is pretty much the core about those. What does actually that mean? Actually sounds ambiguous somehow, right? But the thing about that is when we have properties and we have some kind of functions inside that, everything is inside a class is encapsulated somehow. And those properties and those functions can be actually have different modifiers. They can be public, private, protected, internal. Then you can actually match one of those, like protected internal and private internal, things like that, right? We are not going to go deep through those. You can actually read all those through the book, right? But we're going to focus right now in public and private. Public and private is going to give you a different scenarios that you want to determine indoor classes. So we know that for the base of object-oriented programming, when something is public, that means that it doesn't have any kind of access restriction to that property or to that function itself. A public member can be accessed from an object as well as any derivative class and can be accessed from outside, just call it internally, and it should be more than enough, right? And the private one can be just accessed only by the class itself by defining the item, right? So public can be accessed to everybody, private just locally can be accessed. Protected can be accessed, I believe, through locally and for any child class that came from that one, and we will see that later in future videos. For now, let's just focus on public and private. And we're going to do some kind of example. The book actually gives us a bunch of examples, and you should have access to the source code right now. And from the book you can actually see everything there. But I will take one of those examples and we'll make some kind of changes. We will base it on that. So let's actually do the employee app. And I believe the most complete one that will determine us what kind of information we can actually have in our application. So for that, I will just create a new file and let's call this employee.css. And we're going to use using system. Cool. Let's put a namespace. And the name that does actually give us the employee app, right? And in here we're going to have a class employee. So by default, this is going to be public method, right? Whenever and there's the book actually explains us when you have a child element by default, the main one, the one that is not chained inside, it need to be public. The one inside can be private or protected, and you cannot protect the class from the beginning. It doesn't work like that, right? Pretty much. So we have the class employee, and we need to determine a couple of elements that need to be there. So let's start with something really simple. Let's do for employee. Let's do actually the name. So let's do public string, and let's call this name, right? And of course string with uppercase. And public is like this, right? So we have a public class employee, and we have the name that it can be defined. Now the only things that we need to do is we just need to have the different constructors for this particular class. So the constructors that we need to have for those ones need to be public, because remember it's just inside here. And let's do the public employee. That is the main one, right? And we will have the public employee, and we will have for this one the string name. Let's call this the way that they actually call it, employer name, right? And let's call it the string name. And the only things that we will have here will be pretty much employer name equal name. Done. We have an issue here. Oh, I'm missing this one over here. There you go. So we have the main constructor and the constructor with a name. So we have the employer name there, and we have the employer name property accessible from outside, right? Let's put that second one here, and let's call this one to be private, and let's do an integer. Oops. Integer. Actually, this should be lowercase. And let's call this employee age. Right. And let's have another one here, integer age. And we can actually do employer age equal age. And I will keep it like that for now, right? So we have a main class here. It's employee app. The employee class, we're using the namespace of the employee app. And we have just employer name, employer age, and a couple of basic constructors, the main one and the one that you define everything, right? Simple thing. So let's go to the program, and we can actually get rid of all this. And something really cool about C# 9 is that we don't need to have that main use set anymore. We can actually just do using, and let's do employee app, and we can have a base label constructor here. We can actually do console write line. Let's do something really simple. Go there. Right. We don't need to specify the class and the main property and anything. We can just have that. Let's go to the debug mode and let me just run it. Let me go to my debug console, and we have it there. Hello there. We just printed and it's working. So with that, we can actually use everything from the namespace employee. Oops, let me just reduce this. We can actually have access to the employee itself. So we can have like this employee emp is going to be equal a new employee, right? And we can have in console dot redline. Let's see if we can actually get the employer name. Let's we do employer name equal, let's put my name there, Rodolfo. And we do this again. Right? It's a simple method, public one. We should be able to access, and let's see what happened there. Let's go through here and let's play it again. And we say that it's null, it's nothing at the beginning, and then it's print Rodolfo after we have the assignment, right? We're able to get to the employee name because it's a public method by itself. Now, if I try to do, as you can see by default, my completion doesn't have it, but we know that it's actually called employee age equal, let's put some number there. We can see by default we have an error. It's inaccessible due to protection label. So we are not able actually to get this, right? So here we have the first method or element that is actually protected by, sorry for the redundancy, protection level. Why? Because employer age is actually a private element, where employer name is just a string, and we can actually see it over here, having the C#. Actually, all this is possible because I have the C# extension, right? So we can see all that. We are not able to represent it or given the information that is supposed to be. So here we will get the information. So a good way is regarding the mutability of the system. What does that mean? And the way that actually the system can interact or can change. So by default, for this example, and the book actually explains this, employer name can be accessible, can be anything, but we don't have any kind of protection. In theory, and let me just return here and let me change this to public, right? And then you can see the employer age should be there. We can actually have something like this. Employer age equal 3000 because it's 3000 is still inside the subscription integer 32 number is something that can be assigned, right? And we should be able just to print it. Let me just put over here. Let me execute it. And we can see, yes, the age is 3000. Even that is possible regarding programmatically. In reality, it's something that we need to be sure that we are actually making the correct assumption and the correct assignments over here, right? And employee is just one of 1,000 things that we can actually do. So one way, in order to have that kind of protection, is through different levels. The traditional level, the actually through accessors and mutators. Those one, what it does is actually it creates our elements, and let me just select these two. And let's make these two private, right? And usually when they are private, it's a good convention to have an underscore at the beginning. That's why the book shows those like that, right? And we can see this one doesn't exist anymore. So through the constructor, we can have those and we can assign it, but we are not able to get the information of the set information directly. So we can see it. The book actually gave us, let's actually have something like this. The book actually gave us a way to show it. Let's do public. Let's call this show data, right? And it's a public void. And let's do console.writeLine. Let's do what we can do, employee name, and we can interpolate the let's have this one to be the EMP name. And we can have the console. Actually, maybe copy all this. Oops. And paste it over here. Employee age is going to be employee age. Right, let me save it. So the way protecting that, we have some kind of function to pretty much give us everything. It's called show data. I believe they call it like show status or display status, something like that. Right, but at the end it's the same. So that means we cannot do this anymore. So the only way, and we cannot access that one because it's protected, and we cannot assign it. So the only way to assign it is through the constructor. So we should be able, let's get rid of all this. And we should be able to have a name here. Let's put Rodolfo. Let's put the age. And let's put Terry there. And this should be something like this. Intake. There you go. And then I can just do employee.showData. And that should print everything. Let me execute it again. Let me go to my debug console. And can say employee name is Rodolfo, employee age is Terry. Right there. So this is the one to actually go and make some kind of perfect. Now, so we have that, and we have a protected method that it cannot be accessed through outside, but it can be assigned internally through a method, in this case through the constructor. Now, how to get those should actually work in a way that it is supposed to be, like to be able to set up later. Let's do that. We can actually have, let's put it right here. We can have a public element. Well, let's call this string name. Actually, let's actually public void. And let's call this get name. Right? And it's going to be as simple as return employer name. Right? This should be a string method actually. So we have a get name that will return a string, and we're going to be return this one. And we have the public, a string. Do we need to have some kind of returning just to know that did it work? No, actually this one should be void. That name. Well, and for this one we can say something like employer name, and for here we have the string new name. It's going to be equal new name. Yeah, that should be enough. So with those, we can actually, we have the show data that is working. Now we can actually do to our employee. We can actually get name, right? And let's actually do console.writeLine. That. And if we execute this, we should be fine. Let's see. Go to the console. Employee name, yes, from the shows data. And then we're just printing the write line and get name, because get name is the accessor of the private employer name that we have inside the employee class. It's a really simple concept, right? We have the accessor and we have the mutator. Let's actually get the mutator, and let's do employer emp.setName, and let's call this one, I don't know. Let's put something like this, right? And we just print the get the name again. And let me comment that out my show data in order not to show this anymore. Well, so far you see me here executing the debugging, right? You can actually go to your console and do .NET run too. you have the same output there, right? Rodolfo and Rodolfo Roma. So we have the first name from the constructor, and then we set it with the mutator. And when we set it and we access to this again, we can just see Rodolfo Roma through there. So we can say that it's actually working. And this is the traditional way, the way that we usually use in the past, right? Something really cool that we can actually have to in C# and in the newer version is when we have a simple return, we can actually have some kind of arrows here. So instead of having these 4 lines defining the same, we can actually do something like this. So we can get rid of this. I will get rid of this, and after get name, I just do like a fat arrow, removing the return and the employer name. And I will change this. I will remove this. I go to the beginning, get rid of this, and I will just do this other thing. So with this, now instead of having the same function, let's say a mutator or accessor and mutator in 4 lines, we can have it in 1 line. And this simple line will do the same functionality that we needed. Let me get back to my console. Let me do .NET run. And everything run the way they're supposed to be, right? The difference is that we have less lines of code, right? Something really cool. Also, we have a terminal here. Let me just click on. In order to access is Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P, depending on your Mac or computer. And you can actually select terminal and create a new integrated terminal that will be open for you. And you can actually do the .NET run right here if you don't want to use the debugger, depending what you have there, right? So we have everything in one place, and that actually works too. So this is pretty neat, right? The accessor and mutator. Well, it's explained us also in this chapter that this is a way, and let's keep it like that. I will not delete those. There is another one, and that's another one is through a property. So right now we have a function accessor and mutator, but we can actually do a property, and that will give you to be able to set the setter and the getter for that particular property. So even that I have my private employer name, right? Let's do here a public now, because this one is private. And let's do a string, and we'll call this name. And for that one, oops, we have those over here, and we'll do the simple getter and setter. Give me a second just to get my notes. I just lose them. Sorry for that. There you go. So to get, we just have return employer name, right? And we can have this one like this. Actually, it should be like this. And to set, we can have something specific. Now we can do some kind of validation. Actually, we can do a validation in the set name too, right? But for this one, let's do a simple validation. Let's do actually the same one that we have in the book, right? So when we have a property, this is for accessor mutator, this is true property. We have a name, there is a string, and it's public. And we're saying a custom setter. That setter, we're saying that the value that is going to be assigned, and we have the value property. That value came through the setter when we do name equal something. That something is going to be the value. We verify the length, right? Because it's a string, we just verify if the length is bigger than 15. The raw name length is the 15 character. We just write in this in the console. We will handle the error later in a future lesson. But for now, let's actually put that one. But if you actually pass this, we just enable the employer name equal that particular value, right? So that will allow us Now that we have the set name there, let's actually return it with employee dot name equal Rodolfo, and let's get again the get name, right? We will see that the first time it's going to print Rodolfo, that came from the constructor. We change it with the mutator, and we're able to get the new one. We change it through the property, and once we get it through the mutator, right? But we can actually do here name. I will keep it actually this. And let me just paste it, and instead through the mutator, let me actually get it through the property. And you will see Rodolfo twice in there. So these actually are similar. I'm gonna have an error here. We have an extra parenthesis. Let me save it. And we see that Rodolfo. So the mutator and the property getting that one are pretty much the same. This one just return it, and this one do the validation. What is the difference here? If I put something like this, I don't know, I just put in something random, it just came to my mind. And we try to do it. When we try to assign it, we would have an error, and we see it there. Name length exceeds 15 characters. So when we do the get name, it didn't change. It kept the previous one that it had it valid through here. Right? That's pretty much what we're doing here. Now, well, set name actually doesn't have that kind of validation. The one who have the validation is just name. If we check this, probably we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, we're barely there. So that's pretty much what it is. So we can actually have both. If we want to have, we have to have some kind of versatility in our code. We have through the mutator, and we have through the property, and we can have those. Now, if we need to have through the mutator have the same validation, well, we just get rid of this one, right? We put this one over here. We can do pretty much copy all this and paste it over here, and it should be fine, right? But we have a really with the difference that this should be new name, right? But we have an issue here. We are repeating code, and that's bad, right? We are not keeping the concept. I believe the book doesn't say that, but we are not keeping our code right. What does right mean? It means don't repeat yourself. So in order to have that, we can actually do an extra validation. So instead of doing this, when we do the set name, let me just return everything as it is. And instead of accessing the private property directly, let's actually assign it through the name. So you go through the process of the same validation, and we have the validation in one place. That will help us to have both if we want to, right? And going through the process that is going to be validated. That means, if I do, we saw that this didn't work, we can actually do this one again, and let's do the same one that we have over here. This actually will fail too, right? Let's do a .NET run, and we should be a couple of them should fail. There you go, 1 and 2. Because this one go through the process the same as the property, right? So that's the way that we can actually reuse our internal code in order to have different kind of property or access for that kind of information, right? And it's actually pretty neat. So when we have some kind of validation, it should be something like that. When we don't have that validation, we do just the employee name. Let me actually move my employee age to the bottom. I will put this just before the constructors. There you go. And let me do the public integer age. Um, we can just do a simple, what can I say? We can have a combination here. So we can do a simple, the getter, we just return the employer age, right? And the setter, we just assign the employer age through the value. So we have a combination here now. We have the arrow function, I call it like that. It came from JavaScript, as you can see it. But we can have that, and it's actually a little shorter. I actually have, well, it's not that shorter. So this one is equivalent to this one. Just this with the employer name and this one with the employee age. We're just saving there a couple of typing, returning, and have, instead of the arrows, sorry, the curly bracket, you have the arrow over here, and that's it. But it's just a different way to assign it. That way, we can actually have employee.age equal, let's change this to 33, and let's do employee dot get data, show data. There you go. And now it's 33. And the employee name is Rodolfo Roman because we changed that one through set name right here. So we have a different way to actually access those through the C NET. Now this is pretty cool. It's a simplified version of this one, but when we're doing validation, we can actually skip those. And we can skip more than this. We can actually do something like, I will keep this in order not to remove it, but let's add a new one. Let's add a new one. Let's call this employee pay. Let's change this to, let's do public pay, and this one actually is going to be double, call it pay, but the difference is that we're going to have the default getter and setter. What this does, this simple line, well, this line is exactly the same as these 5 lines that we have over here. Well, 6 lines including this one, right? This method, and we can see that through the book, what it does, it creates a private pay name that is hidden, is no show it there, and it have the traditional access getter and setters. And we were able just to execute that, and we should be able to get the pay, set the pay, and we have the default functionality is we needed to have there, right? That's pretty much what it does. And we can use that one as we knew before. So before we continue, let's add a new one over here. Employee pay is going to be pay. We can actually access that one now, right? And through here, let's do a double call pay, and let's do here pay equal pay. Right? Just to have everything together. Yeah, it does. So that means that this one we should change it, and let's put this one to be, I don't know, 10,000. Oh, something really cool. I don't know if you're aware of that. You can write it 10,000 like this. 10,000 with comma doesn't work, right? Because comma is used for the terminate, but you can actually use an underscore, and that underscore is just giving us some kind of separation, easy to read, and we have a 10,000 differentiator there. If we execute this, .NET run, we see now the employee page should be at the end. There you go, 10,000 there. Right? And we'll be able to show in the data, and we should be able just to right line the employee pay. And that will do that same construction for us, getting the information, and we should be able to print it like this. So this is a new way just to have it everything in one line. Sometimes it's faster just to do it like that, right? And should be able to execute, right? So that is actually what it works. So we have different combinations that we can actually have here and there. For example, I believe they give us another example for oops, I don't know why they jump over there. Execute it, sorry. Let's do a new one. And that's going to be to the employee, yes. So after the public pay, let's do public let's do string SSN, social security number, right? And we can have this one to be a simple getter, but we can do set it to be different, and to set it we can actually do private. And this should be in order for this to work. Probably we need to make this. When we have something like this, the only way to make it work, of course, the get it need to be declared with a body, right? And we should be able to do. Let me just jump it this the way they're supposed to be. Got it? Let's do private. Because now we have something custom, it's not straightforward like this. Just some social security number. And this is a string. So the getter should be able just to print or just to get the social security number, right? But the setter is a private, and we should be able to do, and just to keep consistency, let's do employee SSN, right? And we can just do the setter should be employee SSN equal value. But this way, the social security number can be just set internally, but it cannot be set from outside. That means we are protecting this one. So when we can be set it can be just set, let's say, through the construction. Let's do this one to be string SSN, and let's do SSN equal SSN, right? And of course we can have our validation, we can do whatever we need to have over here, right? But this will allow us, let's do the SSN should be, I don't know, a 99, 99, 99, 99, whatever. I don't know how many put it there. But we should be able to do, let me put those one over here, that one over here, and probably have an extra, there you go. Just to have it, because we can have actually the show data, not show it, but we should be able just to get the console dot write line, the employee dot SN, right? Console, we have two ends in there. There you go. Terminal. Now let's run. We're able to get it, But if we have employee.ssn equal, I don't know, something like this, we have a problem because this one it cannot be accessed. So we should be able to actually protect it to this. Where is it? Right here. You have a private set. So that means even that the social security number is a public one and the getter is just public getter, the setter is just private and can be accessed only through inside the class. So right now we just use it through the constructor itself, right? Just through the constructor, which we're able to get set it up here, but we cannot do it again through this, right? Let me remove that just to remove the error. Let's do something like this. There you go. Let's change my name just because. Let's put John there and let's change this to John Doe, right? And let's change this to John. And let's change this to John, right? Okay. Those should be more than enough in order to have it the way that we need to draw it through here. Other than that, I believe I pretty much explore most of that. And the encapsulation is actually all those properties and functions that we can actually do it or have through our code. So what I will do, I will make this available. Let me actually do it right now. Let me open this one to the left. Let me open my GitHub account to the right. To the other side. Let me get rid of this one right now. Let me put this one over here. Perfect. And let's go to GitHub. Let's have a new repository. Let's call it C# encapsulation example. Right? We want to be public. And we just create it like that. Okay, should be more than enough. Perfect. So here, I will look for git ignore .NET Core. Let's see it. All the objects, all the pins, yes. So what I'm going to be doing, I just look for this one. I believe git ignore. Let's look for that one. Let's see if we can actually have some kind of constructor. Ignore IO, I believe it's called it. Oops. Let's remove this ignore.io. Perfect. So for this one is just for the git in order to hide what is not supposed to be there. So right now, in my case, I have a Mac computer. So I will put Mac OS. I'm using Visual Studio Code. There you go. And I'm using C#. So this is .NET, .NET Core, and C# just in case, right? So this is pretty much the technologies that I'm using. You're using Windows, change this to Windows. Just click Create, copy everything that you have. Wow, it's a lot. and we create a new file called .gitignore, and we paste it and save it. Perfect. Now I can do simple git init. Cool. And let's do git commit. Git add, sorry. To add everything. Git commit with a message, and that message will be example done. And I will just push it to the one that I just created, and I will share this one to you guys if you want to have it. So we just add I would add the remote origin. I will push it with a different, I didn't call it main, I call it master in my case. So I will put this one over here, perfect. And if I refresh this page, I should have the code already there. Perfect. So you have the project, you have the program, and you have the employee CS over there. Perfect. So I hope that you like it. This is Encapsulation 101 in object-oriented programming. It's how to access and protect and publish different areas of your code. For now, any question, any doubt that you have, don't hesitate to reach me. Happy coding, everybody.